Hello everyone. Welcome to the Window on the Week. This week, I would like to share highlights of the launch of the World Economic Forum New Champions Community Local Chapter, South Africa. Risk Insights partnered with Imperial to launch the first local chapter in the world. We had the privilege of hosting Mr. Olivier Schwab, Managing Director of the World Economic Forum, and his team in South Africa. New Champions showcased 3 impactful CSR projects to support impact for South Africa. These are Step Up to a Green Startup, Unjani Clinics NPC, NSA Trails Network. Let's have a look at the highlights of the event.
This is the first local chapter of our New Champions community. New Champions are innovative, medium-sized organizations. They're important because small and medium-sized enterprises constitute the tissue of most of our societies. As you said, these are forward-thinking organizations. They champion new business models. They're driving digital transformation to tackle societal and industry challenges. And they're at the forefront of ESG, namely, how do you create sustainable, equitable, and inclusive businesses while also generating growth and profit.
Legislation will go through in the next 12 to 18 months, and we'll have a legal framework to open up the payment system to non-banks for both settlement and clearing. We are migrating PASA, which is the Payments Association of South Africa, like a self-regulatory body, into something called the Payments Industry Body, which will be a multi-stakeholder forum. There will be banks, but there will also be non-banks and fintech companies that will have access to the payment system through the PIB. An entirely new way of looking at it to try and, I don't want to use the phrase break the monopoly of the banks, but I do want to use the phrase open up the payment space to competition, open up the payment space to fintechs, open up the payment space in an orderly way, in a regulated way, in a way that is still safe and sound and has integrity for the individual users. But we've got to modernize, we've got to dynamize the payment space, and opening it up is absolutely critical.
Build something what will be in use for years to come, and build something in use what would be addressing one of the key challenges which we all as a human beings are facing, irrespective of the continents, irrespective of the nations. And that big challenge is called sustainability, because if we don't address it, as we all know, there is no plan B.
We have a responsibility as leadership to leave the world in a better place than we have found it. Normally, I would use empirical data to say this to you. But today, Risk Insights is proof of this. So what about the E factor? So how did that come into the picture? Risk Insights was founded 13 years ago, but in 2016, my daughter started learning about climate change, and she brought it to my attention. And we had the Deepwater Horizon criminal penalty of $4.5 billion for environmental carnage, which was brought to the attention by my team to Risk Insights and said, well, let's look at building a holistic model for risk management that would take into account ESG, this unstructured data that needs to be measured and will impact on the banking sector. It will impact on expected losses. It will impact on the valuations of companies, but most importantly, it will impact on the consciousness of leaders.
You know, things just don't happen efficiently, but if you can take, if you can digitize that ecosystem by putting in a point of sale device, we heard earlier on from one of the speakers about the penetration rate of point of sale devices. It's simple. We can basically transform the current very inefficient way product gets consumed in Africa to becoming more digital. Takes out cash from the supply chain, which is massive cost. We move products. I shouldn't be saying this, but we do move products like cigarettes and alcohol. And we know cigarettes and alcohol goes everywhere, right? To every nook and cranny, to thousands of points of sale. But the amount of security and cost we spend in terms of keeping that supply chain secure is massive. But if you can take cash out of the system, you take out costs. Now, how do you take out cash from the system? You have to go digital.
Them how to survive by using certain rules and certain laws. And that becomes something that could, in the long run, inhibit you in terms of doing that one. So South Africa is no different, and South Africa is no unique. In my little history in life, which is close to 8 years now, I have learned one thing, and one thing only, and that is we all tend to exist because we get supported by, or we learn from one another. I think that's very important. Two, the other lesson is that if you go back in history, whether you're going to the 9th century or 8th century, there have been changes in various dispensations. It never takes less than 40 years for a people to start changing.
Over the past 7 years, more than 90,000 learners have attended our Step Up to a Startup program. By the way, we also have a maths and science program, a career guidance program, and we're about to launch the biggest gender-based violence program in Africa. 1 million children have attended our programs in cinemas across the country. Now, in its new Global Risks Report 2022, the World Economic Forum cites climate action failure as the #1 risk over the coming decade. The world is on fire. The hour is late. And the moment of consequence, so long delayed, is now upon us. We have moved from being a part of nature to being apart from nature. Scientists warn that we have no more than 9 years to confront the climate emergency.
That we recently just formalized our partnership with Risk Insights to drive sustainability in East Africa, and we are proud of that collaboration. Our critical role as NSC is to connect capital to opportunities. We connect domestic and international capital to opportunities in Kenya. In pursuit of this role, we help domestic and international investors build portfolios across a range of globally recognized investment products, but mostly help issuers raise initial capital at competitive rates to support their growth and development. SMEs are exposed to more sustainability-related risks than large companies. Why, you ask? Because without the cash reserves of larger companies or influence of ever more complex supply chains, ignoring sustainability can prove more costly for SMEs than their larger counterparts.
Today we have provided contract work for over 100 community members. We've uplifted, employed, educated, and empowered 12 rangers with the intent to permanently deploy them in our future business in hospitality and tourism. In the private sector, and we've spent in excess of 2.5 million rand in the community to build these trails. At the moment, 64 kilometers built by just over 100 guys. We've built 48 bridges, in effect, connecting over 600 kilometers of private trails in the Western Cape Winelands alone.
Skill. The other ones were given resilience and psychological grit skills, if you like. And they compared the output. And sure, the ones who had entrepreneurial skills, the traditional ones did grow, but the ones who were given the psychological resilience blossomed way beyond the others. And that is why when you hear about the things of the Trails initiative there and what Martin's doing as well, you'll see that the people who are put into those situations and are given psychological resilience as well are the ones who really grow. And we know that small and medium enterprises have a major role in economies. The SMEs account for 90% of business and more than 50% of employment worldwide, and up to 40% of formal SMEs contribute up to 40% of national income in emerging countries, and they're much higher when informal SMEs are included. So this SME sector is incredibly important.
She can now serve 2 communities, employ more staff, and add real value to these communities. By the end of June 2022, we'll have 127 facilities across South Africa, including 8 mobile facilities that serve outlying rural villages surrounding some of our clinics. Recording an average of 75,000 consultations through our clinics on a monthly basis, we serve over 870,000 annually. And since inception, it's actually not 1.6 million, it's 2.9 million consultations that have been recorded through our network. And the network generates more than 170 million in revenue in a year. But most importantly, in the South African context, over 470 permanent jobs have been created.
But the role of an exchange needs to really go beyond that. We need to recognize that we are part of a broader ecosystem and a community, and therefore our role needs to actually extend to issues such as education, gender inequality or addressing gender inequality, social welfare, and climate change. And these are the kind of issues we as the JSE want to work together with multiple stakeholders to drive inclusive and sustainable growth. So we are all familiar with the tough economic challenges that we are experiencing in South Africa, most recently made worse by the Ukraine-Russia conflict, particularly on our South Africans. And as a stock exchange, our role is really to mobilize financial resources for economic development and job creation.
There are 9 issues when it comes to ESG. The first one is the lack of standardization in how the data is being disclosed and how the data is being reported. A big issue when it comes to reporting ESG. It's very difficult and you need experts when it comes to ESG. The second thing is the lack of monitoring. There isn't a robust way today that monitor the performance of ESG. Most companies, they report it once in a year. How you make sure that you monitor the ESG over time is the lack of automations. I mean, most of companies, they have to collect the data manually. They use survey, data collections, and a huge team just to get the information. And that, of course, will increase the cost of compliance. We have 3 products that is related to ESG. The first one is the X-ray. Is basically we write algorithm and natural language processing that go through every text and try to extract the important information that is related to ESG. The second product we have is the sentimental analysis, the rating watch, which I believe this is the really important application. The third application, which basically all in one. It gives you the ESG, it gives you the news, and of course, it gives you the X-ray data. We have so many local and international sources, annual report, integrated report, CDP, GRI, and we have a natural language processing that goes through all these documentation and look for how important a particular materiality to that company. For example, how they perform in energy, carbon emission, and so on, using an algorithm called TF-IDF.
Forums about not only initiating global initiatives, it's not about Davos, it's not only about YGL, but they've recognized through the initiation of the New Champions Community the importance of localization. And I think that's something as an African continent we all understand very well, that while Africa is one continent, every country in Africa is different. So while we talk about the ESG journey and we all talk about common words, I mean, words that we heard about today, social impact, collaboration, purpose, vision, the role of SMEs, the role of business, it's all very common themes that we talk about. But I think what we need to realize is that when we're on global platforms and we set a global agenda, we need to always keep the local context in mind. And this is what I think the New Champions Community can really show success in.
COVID, climate, and conflict can be overcome by champions.